Hello, YouTubers everywhere. Let me turn this down. I am driving right now again to work. I don't have a whole lot of time on my hands. A lot of stuff's been happening. My stress hormones are high, so I'm sorry I have not been releasing videos actively like I used to. Some people at my site work 26 days straight. Now, I was not one of them, but that's just to give you an idea of how much time I've actually had on my hands. Not much. So, in my last video, I talked to everybody about FE versus NI and how not to trust your FE. Well, actually, my last few videos I brought this up. But something I failed to do is explain how you can tell the difference. Alright, how can you tell whenever your FE is speaking to you versus whenever your NI is speaking to you? And while it is incredibly complex and difficult to discern the two simply by teaching, it does take plenty of self-awareness before you can actively recognize the differences. However, I can suggest some signs to look out for to help you begin to diagnose personally when you're feeling and when you're perceiving, because they're two very different things. And as a direct result of our cognitive stacks, after we perceive, more often than not we feel based on what we perceived, and that is true for any empath. But for us INFJs, it's a little bit more complex because immediately following our feeling, we go to our thinking patterns with our TI. So it can be very easy to confuse NI with FE as a result. And that's what makes us so beautifully unique. Almost said beautiful and unique, but beautifully unique. We are constantly expressing our NI through our FE. And it is so rare to find somebody so pure and authentic in the way that we are. And people don't understand why. And I think sometimes it puts them on guard and makes them a little bit suspicious. Now, this is speculation, just a foreclosure. This isn't an observation so much as it is speculation. But I think sometimes people are caught off guard, and that's what makes them not know how to respond. And that being said, it does create some problems for us INFJs because it confuses us. And it leaves us thinking, did I miss the mark? Am I off on something? Was my intuition wrong? And sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes it's no. But then we have to ask the question, is there something wrong with my feelings? And the answer is yes and maybe no. You really have to do some soul searching to decide for yourself if your feelings are the problem. Sometimes they can be, and I've said before, don't think off of your FE, don't act on it because it will get you into trouble. It doesn't always get other people into trouble. Sometimes it helps them, but it almost always gets us into trouble. So you have to decide for yourself if your feelings are the problem, work it out, if it's between you and someone else, and just keep following along because I'll tie all of this together. But you have to decide for yourself if your FE is the problem, with the reason why you have trouble differentiating between your perception of people and your feelings for people. In my personal case, it's not, because hang on, there we go. Sometimes my car will squeak over those bumps. I'll have to get a new one soon. For me personally, my FE does not get in the way of my perception, because I have learned to set my feelings aside. And again, I said this in my last video with the skit, males, it's a lot harder for females to do this because males possess a variant chemical in our body of vasopressin, which dampens our emotions. So me as a male INFJ, it is easier for me to act in the role of an INFJ-A, even whenever I'm speaking to INFJ-T types. And for those of you who aren't quite aware, INFJ-Ts are turbulent. They are a little bit everywhere, very spontaneous, very charismatic. They lean a lot more on the creative side, and they are much more apt to allow their emotions and empathy to guide their actions, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if they don't do it, then it takes a partner or someone else in their life to kind of help cross-check their feelings and say, am I in the right here? Am I overthinking this? Or are my emotions just out of whack and misleading me? Am I misreading their signs, social cues? So INFJTs are incredibly charismatic and feeling individuals. I think personally, they're more feelers than they are judgers. And again, this is just observation and speculation. But from my personal judgment and the way I understand this, INFJT types, although they are judgers, definitely act in the role of a feeler until their NI is engaged. INFJAs, however, are a lot less on the turbulent side and more on the assertive side. They're the ones who would be, I don't want to say better, more apt, that's the word. The INFJAs are the ones who are more apt to listening and observing instead of speaking and engaging. I'm slowing down, give me just a moment. Cruise control. It's starting to rain. Alright, so INFJTs can kind of be spontaneous in their conversations and jump and be real giddy, like you've seen me do in some of my videos. We're INFJs regardless. But INFJA types tend to have their emotions a little bit more grounded, or they internalize a lot more than they talk, than they speak. And it's not to say that there's anything different going on in our heads, it's just to say that they're slower to make judgments. And sometimes it's just caution speaking, and other times it's because INFJAs rely a little bit more on their TI. But getting back on track, how can you distinguish the difference between your NI and your FE? What are the signs? How can you tell? Well, the first sign is to cross-check. Anytime you feel like doing something, and it'll take some practice, but then it will become second nature. Just a habit. You don't even think about it anymore. But thinking after you think. And I know it sounds a little bit weird and redundant, but after you think about doing something, don't second guess yourself, but run your thought process through a second time. Say, okay, how did I come to this conclusion? I was just thinking about, and play it back through your head again. Mom just said she was feeling upset, and now I want to do this. And when you go back through your mind and think about what you just thought about, you'll play it out, and it will allow you to examine your emotions that led up to the current conclusion. And if you don't see any of your emotions affecting your thought pattern, because when you go back through it a second time, if everything's blurry and you can't quite figure out where it all started, that's your FE talking. It is your emotions. Emotions fluctuate far too much to be considered stable. So, since emotions are ungrounded, they must be grounded manually. It's like turning off autopilot. I guess a better example would be to say INFJs run on autopilot far too often, and the AI, or in this case, EI, emotional intelligence instead of artificial intelligence running the ship, sees an island down below and smoke coming off of the island and immediately assumes that, hey, that's not a volcano, that's a person that needs help. And the plane flies down towards the volcano and gets a little bit too hot and the system overheats. You're in the same way, sometimes you have to turn off autopilot and manually re-examine the system and your surroundings and make a sound judgment call using your TI. So, in those moments where you can't quite pinpoint where your thoughts started from, it's a good idea to stop using your NI, not because it's necessarily wrong, but because it may not be accurate. If it's not peaceable, if it's not still, and there's doubt going through your mind and questions, it's probably better not to act on a ratio statistic. Now, I understand that that's what NI is. That's what intuition is. However, if you can increase your statistics of being correct by even 1%, it's worth it. Think of how many people you associate with in a day and the rest of your life that you can't even imagine the numbers. Now, I want you to imagine 1% difference, 1% of the time, the rest of your life, with the hundreds of thousands of people you will end up interacting with and seeing. 1% of the times that you speak to people, you are wrong. See how big a difference that can make. If you can increase statistically the chance of your intuition being correct by even 1%, it's worth it. So turn the plane off autopilot. If there's a 10% chance that you could be wrong, I say check your intuition, pick up some extra signs, or a fish. Ask a couple of questions in a roundabout way to try to poke and prod at their feelings, at the other person's psyche, and see, all right, if I'm correct, they will respond in this way. Boom, they responded. You were correct. That 90% just turned to a 95%. So what I'm really trying to say is how to know whenever your NI is talking to you and it's not your FE is there will be consistency. When you are feeling like you're picking up on something, don't immediately trust your instincts. Cross-check them. In the same way that, let's say I'm at work. There's a person who's not smiling. She's been frowning all day, or just not smiling all day. And all of a sudden, I get this gut feeling, this light bulb moment, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but I feel like she's going to break down and cry and just wants someone to talk to. How in the world do you approach that person using what you've gained from your NI and find out if you're correct? For all you know, this could be a 50-50 ratio. You don't know, but you feel like it might be true. So now you have no evidence whatsoever to support your NI. You go back through your mind, you think about what you just thought about. There are no... Hang on. Off this road, there's construction work. I'm bouncing too much in my car. There are no contradictions in your thinking. Everything's pretty stagnant, pretty consistent. So you think to yourself, what am I supposed to do to double check that this is my NI and it's not my FE? Because obviously I want to do something. And you... Stupid bag. Sorry. It was making noise for the last 8 minutes, and really, I couldn't take it anymore. So, man, I'm all over the place today. So you go to that person, or you observe them from a distance, and you say, okay, if this was true, if she was going to break down and cry, and I'm deeply sorry, everyone, for the pauses. There's a lot of road construction work going on, and this is not the norm for me, so I have to be very aware. You go to that person, and you think to yourself, okay, if she was going to break down and cry, she's likely to show another sign indicating that there is something emotionally wrong. So you go up and you try to talk to her, you say hi. Now she starts showing body language signs. She either doesn't look at you, she hesitates, she looks and then looks away, etc., etc. Or she responds and you can hear in the tone of her voice that she's not calm. Boom. Add 5% statistic. She could be stressed, it could be a number of things. There was something emotionally wrong. Your intuition picked up on that. Good job. Now you're at 55%. You hear this, let's just say she responds. She says hi, and then goes right back to her work. Turns her head back down, doesn't look. You say, is something the matter? She says, I just want to be alone. Add 5% to that. That means that she is showing closed body language signs and she doesn't want to talk to anyone. Now you can be even more sure that if she doesn't even want to open up to anybody and she hasn't spoken to anyone all day, and you've noticed this, that, yeah, there is something weighing on her to the point where she could break down and cry. Oh, it might not happen. 60% ratio. Continue cross-checking your NI. Do it in a way that is caring and loving. Don't poke and prod. People don't like having their emotions and psyche pried into, even though we do that naturally. I get it. But, it should be second nature. The important thing whenever it's your NI talking is do not involve your FE. I am warning you as a word of wisdom to all you INFJs out there and all of you people who use introverted intuition and intuition in general. When somebody is upset or whenever your intuition is telling you something, do not involve your emotions. That is a disaster waiting to happen. That is turning the plane back on autopilot while you're already on the ground next to a fire. All right, you're trying to put the fire out, not make the person feel so overwhelmed because all of a sudden a plane started spinning right next to their face while you're trying to talk with them, all right? That plane is metaphorical of your emotions. The last thing anyone needs whenever they are having their psyche pried into is someone being emotional. You've got to set them aside and leave them where they lie. If you want to use your NI, do not use your FE. This is why people, mainly INFJs in this category, struggle discerning between the two. If you engage your NI, don't engage your FE. If you engage your FE, it is to supplement your NI. You are not supposed to act and live off of your FE because emotions are too turbulent. You won't get consistent results that way. Now, I am at my job and I have got to go. However, I wish all of you a very, very nice day. Leave your thoughts, comments in the descriptions. Leave your, my info will be in the description. Leave your thoughts and comments. Words, Eric. And like the video if it helped you. I'll see you all next time.